The minute hand on the sleek, modern wall clock in my newly designed cafe inches toward the top. Just 15 minutes. 15 minutes until the doors open, until the ribbon is cut, until years of dreaming, saving, and working until my eyes burned finally become real. This isn't just a coffee shop. It's the daily grind, my absolute everything. It's the physical manifestation of every late night, every ramen noodle dinner, every penny I painstakingly saved while everyone else was, well, living. My stomach is doing nervous backflips, but it's a good kind of nervous. The air smells like roasted beans, fresh paint, and possibility. Jackson walks up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Hey you," he murmurs, his chin resting on my shoulder. "You're glowing." I lean back into him, taking a shaky breath. "Just can't believe it's happening." "Believe it," he says, kissing my temple. "You built this. Brick by brick, bean by bean." He gets me. He sees the work, the struggle. Not like my family. With them, it always felt like I was running on a hamster wheel, trying to catch something just out of reach. Trying to catch their attention, their approval. Trying to measure up to Lucas. Lucas, my older brother. The golden child. The one who always needed rescuing. His life was a series of dramatic crises, failed businesses, bad debts, quick schemes that went south faster than a lead balloon. And my parents, they revolved around him. Remember when Lucas was 16 and scraped his knee skateboarding? Mom acted like he'd lost a limb. Dad spent the week waiting on him hand and foot. The same week I won the regional science fair. I brought home the big blue ribbon, beaming. Mom was in the kitchen making Lucas soup. "That's nice, dear," she said, barely looking up. "Put it on the fridge if you want." Lucas grumbled about his knee, and Dad sighed dramatically about teenage boys will be boys. My ribbon ended up tucked in a drawer. Jackson squeezes my hands. "Your parents confirm they're on their way?" I bite my lip, nodding. "Yeah. Mom texted last night. Said they were excited. Finally getting to see what I've been working on." A tiny flicker of hope, persistent as a weed, pushes through. Maybe, just maybe, they'll finally see me. See that I built something real, something successful, without any help from them. Maybe this time they'll be proud. Chloe, my best friend since college, pops her head in from the kitchen. 5 minutes, boss. Everything's perfect. You're perfect. She gives me a thumbs up, her smile wide and genuine. I grin back, adjusting the sash on my dress. Okay, deep breaths. Jackson kisses me again, a solid, grounding presence. He heads to the front to mingle with the early arrivals. Local press, friends, some potential investors Chloe helped me invite. I take one last look around the empty cafe. The gleaming espresso machine, the art on the walls chosen just for this space, the pastries lined up in the display case. It's real. And soon my parents will walk through that door, and maybe they'll finally understand. My phone buzzes in my pocket. A text from Mom. My hands tremble slightly as I pull it out. It's not a running late text. It's a wall of chaotic words. "Lucas, trouble, serious, need to go, not sure, won't make it, so sorry." No details, just panicked fragments. A follow-up text from Dad, unusually brief, emergency with Lucas. "We left immediately. Can't be there." My breath catches in my throat. Emergency with Lucas. Again. Always Lucas. My brain struggles to process. My grand opening. Years of work. And they just left? For a vague emergency with Lucas? Chloe appears beside me, sensing something is wrong. "Hey, what is it?" I hand her the phone, my hands suddenly icy. She reads the texts, her face falling. "Oh, Natalie." "No." Jackson is at my side in an instant. "What's wrong? What happened?" My voice is barely a whisper. "They're not coming." "Lucas, something with Lucas." Chloe had been chatting with a distant cousin of mine online just minutes ago, hyping the launch. She checks her phone quickly, eyes widening. "Natalie, it's worse than you think." Cousin Sarah posted something cryptic. Apparently, Lucas got involved in some kind of crazy online scam, like serious fraud charges are being threatened. They literally got a call this morning saying he needed them to come now to some lawyer's office 3 states away to sort it out. They just left. It wasn't just a mild emergency. It was another full-blown, self-inflicted disaster by Lucas. And my parents prioritized bailing him out immediately over being here, over my launch. The launch they promised to attend. The launch that represents my stability, my success, my hard work. A wave of nausea washes over me. It's the same feeling as being that 10-year-old girl with the science fair ribbon, realizing she was invisible next to Lucas's scraped knee. It's the same feeling as every birthday they were late to because Lucas needed something, every holiday dinner cut short because Lucas was going through a tough time. The doors open. Music starts. People stream in, smiling, excited. They greet me, offer congratulations. I paste on a smile, my cheeks aching. I accept flowers, shake hands, offer samples. Inside, though, there's a growing hollowness, a cold rage. They weren't just absent. They chose to be absent. They looked at their calendar, saw my launch, saw Lucas's crisis, and didn't hesitate for a second. Jackson stays close, his hand on my back, his eyes asking if I'm okay. Chloe intercepts people trying to monopolize my time, giving me brief moments to breathe. I see the empty table I'd reserved, prominently placed so they could see everything. It's a gaping hole in the room, a physical representation of where their support should be, isn't. I managed to get through the planned little speech, thanking everyone who did show up. My voice was steady, but I felt like I was watching myself from outside my body. Afterwards, mingling felt like wading through thick water. Everyone was congratulating me, celebrating my achievement, and all I could think was, my parents aren't here because my brother is in trouble again, and that's more important to them than me. Later, after the initial rush died down and the crowds thinned, Jackson found me in the back, staring out the window. "Hey," he said softly, touching my arm. "You did amazing. Truly amazing." I leaned my head against the cool glass. They didn't come, Jackson. Not because they couldn't. Because they chose not to. Lucas's screw-up was more important than years of my life, building this. He pulled me into a hug, holding me tight. "I know. And I'm so sorry. But look around, not look at everyone who is here. Chloe, our friends, even strangers who just love what you've created. They see you. They showed up." Chloe came in looking sympathetic. "Anything I can do? Do you want me to call them? Yell at them?" I shook my head. "No. What's the point? They made their choice." Again. The pain was sharp, but underneath it, a hard, cold realization was forming. This wasn't new. This was the pattern. Just writ large this time. The launch party wasn't just an event. It was a test. And they failed. Spectacularly. The next few days were a blur of adrenaline from the successful launch mixed with the crushing weight of my parents' betrayal. The cafe was doing well, thanks to good reviews and word of mouth. Professionally, I was soaring. Personally, I felt like I'd been kicked in the gut. The inevitable calls started coming. Not apologies. Not even a genuine, "How was the launch?" Just drama. "Oh, Natalie, it's been awful." Lucas is facing. They'd launch into the details of his crisis, painting him as a victim of circumstances, completely glossing over his poor choices. Then came the pivot. "The legal fees are astronomical. We're using all our savings. We just don't know how we'll manage." It was the same script, just a different crisis. I'd heard versions of this my whole life. Lucas needed a car, Lucas needed rent money, Lucas needed his credit card paid off. And somehow, it always fell on me to pick up the slack, even when I was struggling myself. Remember that time I gave them nearly $15,000 of my wedding savings from a previous engagement that didn't work out, but the savings were real, because they said they were facing foreclosure? Lucas had borrowed money from their retirement fund, and they couldn't make the mortgage payments. I wrote check after check for 8 months. Did they ever pay me back? Of course not. Did they even really thank me? Not properly. They just said things like, "See? Family helps family. Lucas would do the same for you." He absolutely wouldn't have. Now, the demands were coming again, less subtle this time. "You're doing so well with your business, Natalie. You have savings now. Family needs to stick together." Or the classic guilt trip, "After everything we've done for you, putting you through school." Which, by the way, I paid for most of with scholarships and working 3 jobs. I talked to Jackson about it, frustration boiling over. They just expect it. Like I'm some kind of family bank account, only useful when Lucas screws up. Jackson held my hand. They're not asking you, Nat. They're telling you. They feel entitled. And after pulling that stunt at your launch, it's beyond messed up. Chloe suggested I just ignore them. They made their bed, she said bluntly. But a part of me, the part that still craved their love, felt like I had to do something. Had to make them see the unfairness, the hypocrisy. That's when Jackson suggested I talk to his cousin Rachel. She's a lawyer, he said. Family law, probate, all that stuff. She can tell you if they have any leg to stand on with these demands, or if it's just hot air and manipulation. Meeting Rachel was eye-opening. Her office wasn't fancy, but it felt solid, grounded. I laid out everything, the history of favoritism, the launch day, the texts and calls demanding money now. I showed her printouts of old emails where I'd helped them financially, payments I'd made towards their bills. Rachel listened patiently, taking notes. Based on what you're telling me, Natalie, she said, her voice calm and measured, parents have a legal obligation to support their minor children. They generally cannot retroactively demand payment for doing what the law requires. And any money you gave them as an adult, unless there's a written loan agreement, is legally considered a gift. A wave of relief washed over me. It wasn't just my perception. They really didn't have a right to demand this. Rachel looked at me kindly. Honestly, Natalie, this isn't about the money for them. It's about control. You've built this incredible life, this successful business, entirely independent of them. You don't need them in the way they expected you to. And that threatens their dynamic, their sense of power over you. Making you financially obligated, especially for Lucas, is a way to pull you back in. Her words hit me like a physical blow, but they also brought immense clarity. Control. That's what it was. Not love, not family helping family. Control. Despite this clarity, a stubborn part of me still wanted them to get it. Wanted them to apologize, to acknowledge the years of imbalance. I decided, against Rachel's advice for minimal contact, to try one last time. I sent them an email, carefully worded, avoiding accusations but stating clearly how hurt I was by their absence at the launch, how their immediate financial demands felt wrong, and that I couldn't continue to be the family's safety net. I didn't demand an apology, just asked for understanding and space to figure things out. Their response was swift and brutal. A barrage of texts, calls, and emails, coordinated between Mom, Dad, and Lucas. They twisted my words, called me selfish, ungrateful. How dare you talk about being hurt when your brother is facing ruin? That launch was just a party. Get over yourself. Lucas sent me a long, rambling text about how families should help each other, and didn't I care if he ended up in jail? The guilt trips were piled high. Your mother is heartbroken, you would say something like this. Your father is devastated. There was no understanding, no remorse, only anger that I wasn't immediately complying with their demands and expectations. My fragile hope shattered completely. Rachel was right. They didn't want connection. They wanted control and money. That night, after talking it through with Jackson, the decision was made. It hurt, a deep, aching sorrow, but it felt necessary. With Jackson by my side, I went through my phone and blocked their numbers. All three of them. I blocked them on social media. I asked Chloe to let mutual acquaintances know, gently, that I needed some space from my family and wouldn't be discussing their situation. The silence that followed was deafening. After years of constant drama, requests, and veiled criticism, my phone was quiet. It was unsettling, like the calm before a storm, but also peaceful. A strange, new kind of peace. Rachel had also suggested that putting physical distance between us might help enforce the boundaries, especially given their history of showing up unannounced. It seemed extreme, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. My business was doing well, and I had always considered opening a second location in a different market. Jackson's job was flexible. We started looking. We found the perfect spot in a vibrant city on the East Coast. It was far enough away that a casual dropping by wasn't feasible. It felt like a fresh start, building our lives, our future, without the constant shadow of their drama. The move was exhausting, but also exhilarating. Setting up the new apartment, getting the second cafe location ready. It was all ours. Stella, Jackson's mom, was incredibly supportive, sending care packages and calling just to chat about normal things. She became a wonderful example of what healthy familial love could look like: unconditional, supportive, respectful. Months passed. 6 months. The silence from my family was almost complete, punctuated only by the occasional strained email forwarded by another relative. "Your mother asked me to send this," which I would read carefully with Rachel's advice in mind, but not respond to. My business in the new city was thriving. I felt lighter, happier, truly free for the first time in my life. The constant anxiety I hadn't even realized I carried began to dissipate. Then, one sunny Saturday afternoon, as I was sitting on my porch with Jackson, enjoying a rare quiet moment, a car pulled into my driveway. Not just one. 2 cars. A familiar dark sedan, my parents' model, followed by Lucas's beat-up coupe. My stomach dropped. They found me. Jackson saw my face, his hand instantly covering mine. "Nat, what is it?" "It's them," I whispered, standing up. My heart was pounding, but strangely, my hands weren't shaking this time. Years of managing their crises, years of being the responsible one, had taught me composure. Rachel's advice echoed in my mind. "You have the right to feel safe in your own home. You don't have to let them in. You don't owe them anything." They got out of the cars, looking like they'd driven straight through, which, knowing them in Lucas's perpetual urgency, they probably had. Mom's face crumpled into a look of practiced distress the moment she saw me. Dad stood behind her, arms crossed, looking stern and disappointed, his go-to expression when he wanted me to feel guilty. Lucas hovered awkwardly nearby, looking less like a man in crisis and more like a kid waiting for his parents to fix something. "Natalie." "Oh, sweetheart." Mom rushed forward as if we hadn't spoken in months, which we hadn't, by my choice. "Why haven't you returned our calls?" "We were so worried." "Worried?" My voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. "You drove hundreds of miles because you were worried?" Dad stepped forward. "This distance, this silence, it's not right, Natalie. Family belongs together. We came to make things right. You expect me to just let you in after you showed up uninvited, after I asked for space?" I didn't raise my voice, but the question hung in the air. Jackson stood silently beside me, a calm, solid presence. Lucas finally spoke, his voice whiny. "Nat, we need to talk. It's about things." "Things?" I looked directly at him. "Things like the money you need, or the legal trouble you're in because of your own choices?" Mom gasped dramatically, putting a hand to her chest. "Natalie Elizabeth, don't you talk to your brother like that. He's been through enough." "And what about what I've been through?" I asked, my voice gaining strength. "What about my launch? What about years of being second best? What about you demanding money after ignoring my biggest moment?" Dad attempted the authoritative tone. "That's quite enough. We aren't discussing the past. We need to discuss the family situation." "Oh, we are absolutely discussing the past," I said, stepping back slightly, but not opening the door wider. "Because the past explains the present. And the present is you showing up here, uninvited, expecting what? Forgiveness? Money? A place to stay." Mom started crying, real tears this time, but they felt performative. "How can you be so cold? We're your parents." "My parents who abandoned me on my biggest day," I stated plainly. "My parents who only seem to call when Lucas needs bailing out or you need money. My parents who think my value is measured by how much I sacrifice for family." Their faces hardened. The performance dropped. "You think you're better than us now?" Dad sneered. "Living in your fancy new place, ignoring your family?" "I think I'm choosing my own well-being," I corrected. "Something I should have done years ago." I turned and walked inside, leaving the door open just enough for them to see me walk towards my small office off the living room. Jackson followed, closing the main door behind him, but staying quiet. I walked to my desk and picked up the slim folder I'd prepared months ago, almost hoping I'd never need it. I returned to the living room where they stood stiffly. I didn't invite them to sit. I walked to the coffee table and laid out the contents of the folder. Bank statements highlighted with payments I'd made to them and Lucas. Printed emails and texts asking for money, some outlining vague emergencies. Photos of Lucas's expensive hobbies or purchases around the times he supposedly needed help. And, chillingly, printouts of the chaotic, dismissive texts they sent the morning of my launch party. This, I said, gesturing to the table, is the truth. My $15,000 that disappeared. Your repeated demands. Your priorities laid bare. I paused, then added the final piece. And this. I played a short audio clip on my phone, a recording I'd made legal in my new state with one-party consent, during that disastrous final attempt at reconciliation, capturing them demanding money and dismissing my feelings. The sound filled the room. Mom's frantic voice, Dad's dismissive tone, Lucas's whining demands. They stared at the table, at the phone, their faces slack with shock, then twisting into anger. How dare you? Mom shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. Recording your own mother? That's illegal. Lucas blustered, stepping forward. It's not, I said calmly, remembering Rachel's words. And it's proof. Proof of how you operate. This is manipulative. Dad yelled, his face red. You're trying to make us look bad. You don't need my help with that, I responded, feeling a surge of power, not from anger, but from truth. You did it yourselves. By always putting Lucas's drama first. By treating me like a bank machine. By missing the moment I finally built something meaningful, because you had to fix his latest mess. I looked at each of them. Mom, still crying performatively. Dad, furious at losing control. Lucas, looking between them and me, maybe finally realizing he wasn't untouchable. I tried to talk to you, I continued, my voice unwavering. I asked for understanding. You responded with more demands and guilt. I sought advice and set boundaries. You responded by showing up uninvited at my home. I took a deep breath. I am done. Done with the cycle. Done with the expectations. Done trying to earn love that you are clearly incapable of giving. I walked to the front door, opening it wide onto my quiet street, my peaceful new life. You need to leave. Now. You'll regret this, Natalie. Dad warned, his voice shaking with rage. You're cutting off your family. I'm cutting off the toxicity, I corrected. You taught me what family isn't. Jackson and the people who showed up for me taught me what it is. Mom made one last attempt. When you have children, you'll understand. I understand perfectly, I said, my eyes dry. I understand I will never make my children feel the way you made me feel. Goodbye. They stood there for a moment, stunned, then turned and walked out the door. Lucas cast one last, resentful look back. Jackson closed the door softly after them. The house was silent again. The quiet this time wasn't unsettling. It was liberating. A heavy weight I hadn't known the full extent of was finally lifted. I leaned back against the closed door, a shaky breath escaping my lips. It hurt, a deep, primal ache of severing ties, but the relief was immense. Jackson came and held me, just held me without saying anything. That's what I needed. Walking away from them wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about self-preservation. It was about choosing peace over perpetual chaos, self-worth over constant validation-seeking, and real love over conditional obligation. My business continued to flourish. My relationship with Jackson deepened. He truly was my partner, my anchor, my chosen family. Chloe visited, impressed by the new cafe and happy to see me genuinely happy. Stella called often, offering warm, motherly advice that felt like a balm. The pain of the break still surfaced sometimes, a dull ache of longing for a functional family I never had. But it was quickly replaced by gratitude for the life I was building, brick by brick, bean by bean, with people who saw me, valued me, and loved me for exactly who I was. The debt of trying to earn their love had finally been paid in full, not with money or sacrifice, but with the courage to walk away and claim my own freedom. And that, finally, felt like enough.